Mountain biking is not only a dangerous sport, but it's also very, very difficult to learn and to pick up. But like anything in life, there's plenty of little things that you can do along the way which will not instantly help you to improve, but very quickly put you on the right track.
We are going to be showing you 10 tips that you as a beginner rider should know about before you set out on the trails for the first time. So let's take a look at the first tip.
The first thing that we're going to be taking a look at is before we actually even get on the bike, and that is your equipment, not only from a safety point of view, but also dealing with all different types of weather and conditions. I'm always really surprised at how many beginner riders I see out and about on the trails who are wearing incorrect or inappropriate clothing, and worst of all, not even wearing any protection. Some people not even wearing helmets. For today, I'm going to be trail riding on the e-bike, so I'll talk you through what kit I'm going to be wearing. First of all, knee pads. I don't ride any bike without knee pads. If I'm on the jump bike, I'll add shin pads and an ankle brace. I've got waterproof trousers on, the same with the jacket. Helmet, as always, a good set of gloves and a decent set of shoes. And I think that having a good set of shoes and a good set of gloves is crucial, because it's the only contact between you and the bike. And if you have a bad feeling through these items, then it's 100% going to affect your riding and make you perhaps not feel so comfortable. Like I just said, I'm wearing knee pads today, but if I ride a bike without them, then I feel like I've gone out in the street completely naked. It feels super strange. Obviously, wear whatever makes you feel comfortable. If you're a beginner and you have to wear lots of padding and protection, this is only going to help with your confidence and make you learn, send it, and hopefully progress quicker. Let's move on to the next point.
Before you even leave the car park, the next step is to familiarise yourself with the controls. These days bikes have so much going on, and I would say the most important one being work out which brake does what. I've come across people in the past that don't even know what is their front and rear brake, and the last thing you want to do is to go flying down a trail and accidentally grab a handful of front brake, because that will only send you over the bars. Next thing is your gear selection, so know what lever goes up and what lever goes down the gears. Also, you drop a post, know how that works if you've got one. And if you're like me and you've got an e-bike, then familiarise yourself with the controls for that. These things are really important because you wouldn't get in and drive a car without having a lesson. So give yourself a little lesson on your bike beforehand, because it's then one less thing you have to worry about when you're actually riding.
For number 3, I'm going to bring up something that many of you might not even know about, and that is to work out what foot forward you ride. Now, if any of you have ever been snowboarding or have any interest or knowledge on skateboarding, then you always ride with a foot forward, and it's the same on a bike. Personally, I ride left foot forward, and if I was to try and switch it up and ride right foot forward, then it's like trying to write with your opposite hand. It feels so weird, and I actually can't do many tricks or jumps with my feet around the wrong way. So if you're not aware of this, the way you can figure out which way is most comfortable is either to get on the bike and just see what foot ends up in front, or you can get someone to gently push you in the back, and the first foot that you put forward is what should be the one you have in front. I've seen people that aren't aware of what foot forward they are, and they ride a trail left foot forward, then the next one they're riding right foot forward. So try and figure out what foot that you need to have in front. It'll make you feel more comfortable and help you to shred.
The next tip, which is a super important one, is to make sure that when you're riding you have your pedals flat. And I've definitely been one that hasn't done this in the past, but I've learnt from it, and as I've progressed with my riding, I've always made sure that I keep my pedals flat. And the reason that this is really important is because when you're out on the trails, you could be riding through roots, rocks, even going up and down hills. If your pedals aren't flat, they're going to clip, which is going to mean you're going to have a big crash. So an example of this is, say my feet are like this, it makes you lean to one side. So if you're going up a jump or even just down a hill where there's roots and things, your pedal is lower down, so it's going to catch, meaning that you're going to crash. And this links in nicely to the previous tip which Tom told you about which foot forward you are. So once you know that, keep your pedals flat with your dominant foot forward.
For number 5, we're going to be taking a look at the track stand. Now this is a skill and a move that I teach or tell everyone to learn, and I was told to learn this first of all by my dad, and I think it's so important. It's low risk, but it teaches you so much bike control and so much skill that it's just crucial, and I think everyone should go out there and learn it. You don't need anywhere fancy, and like I say, there's certainly no risk involved, but it definitely sharpens those balance skills and helps for all them big moves you're going to be sending and learning whilst trail riding.
The next tip is to always cover the brake, and by this I mean have one finger, so your index finger, on the brake. This is a really good habit to get into, because when you're going down the trail and you need to do an emergency stop or you want to brake, your finger is already there and waiting to pull that lever in. I always do one finger, some people do two, but the reason for this is because if you've got one finger on the brake, you've still got a really good grip of the bar, whereas two means you've only got a little bit of grip and it's not as good. So make sure you always cover the brakes, because in an emergency you can stop.
This is actually something that I never thought of until recently, when actually it's so important, but that is simply getting off the bike. And what made me think of this is Cara had a massive face plant in the dream yard off the balance beam, and she didn't even make an attempt to get off the bike or get away from the bike whatsoever. And that made me think, actually, people could save themselves from injuries and big crashes if they just knew how to bail or step away from the bike simply. Obviously, being able to do this is never going to completely save you from crashes and accidents, because it's part of it, but if you can learn to just jump off the bike like this, that could come in really handy, and it would have certainly saved Cara from a huge faceplant on the balance beam. Bailing is something that you should just be conscious of. In each scenario it will be different, but if you're conscious of it, then you might be able to save yourself from having a serious accident.
The next tip is to look at a feature or trail before you ride it. This is to eliminate that scared factor, so instead of you not knowing what's coming, you'll be fully confident in what you can ride. Also as well, there could actually be a hazard down there, such as a person that could have crashed, or a log or a rock or something that needs moving out of the way. Also as well, especially on a day like today where it's a bit wet, there could be a puddle and just varying changing trail conditions that could mean that that section or feature is unrideable.
Tip number 9, and we're going to be taking a look at gear selection, which is super important. It links into the first tip that Cara mentioned, where she was saying about familiarising yourself with the controls on your bike and understanding the gears on your bike. Now, I'm going to give you a few examples of where being in the right gear and focusing on it is important. The first one being, you're coming down a long chute, you need to be looking ahead to see what's coming, because if you have something that you need to go up, it's wise to start coming back through them gears early, because it's not going to disturb the flow of your ride or interrupt the rhythm. If you're in the wrong gear, then you're either going to be spinning too quick or you're going to be too high and not be able to make it up the hill. The next, and I would say more important scenario, is you've dropped into something, you're gaining speed, maybe going a bit slow for a jump, you've not paid attention to what gear you're in when you've gone, or thought ahead about if you need to pedal, what gear you need to be in, and you've gone to put a pedal in, it's either too high and you've not moved, or it's too low, you've spun. Spinning really quick can be dangerous because it can make your feet blow off, it can make you lose balance, and if you're doing that approaching a jump, then it could result in an accident, which we want to avoid at all costs.
Tip number 10, and the final tip for this video, and that is to always have your seat down when you are riding anything, when you're stood up basically. And the reason for this is if you're riding a jump, for example, or a steep downhill chute, the last thing you want is your saddle to be hitting you up the bottom, because it will end up in a crash. An example for this would be myself, and when I was learning to jump, I accidentally had the saddle up too high, and I did the jump, the saddle hit me up the bottom and it bucked me and just put all my centre of gravity and my balance off balance, meaning that I was uncomfortable and could have ended up in a big crash.
there we have it. That is our 10 tips for any of you new beginner bike riders that are just getting into mountain biking. They're things that you should take on board and apply to your riding, and hopefully they've helped you to progress and move on to that next level. We have plenty more tips and little tricks that we can teach you guys. So if you enjoyed this one, give us a thumbs up and let us know in the comments below. And we'll see you guys in the next video.